Why no student is ever serious in the first week of school. Let's start with focus on the research that speaks to the explanation we have. So the first research is based off the book Best Practices in School Neuropsychology, the chapter labeled Return to Learn by Cynthia Park, 2022. And the second one has to do with Janus, Mishkin, and Pearson, 1997, labeled Beyond School Reentry, Addressing Long-Term Cognitive Needs Within the Field of Neurorehabilitation. When students return to school after a break, the scientific truth is that their brains are actually not immediately ready for academic work. And yeah, this is not a motivational issue, it's actually a neurological one. Research in neuropsychology, like what I indicated earlier, tells us that after periods of cognitive rest, or what we like to think of as a break, the brain enters into a phase that we call the re entry phase. And during that particular phase, the part of your brain that's responsible for things like planning, things like focus, things like mental endurance, that part of your brain is now recalibrating. So I want you to think of it like your brain going offline for a while. So, and like every other system, it obviously doesn't turn on immediately. One of the things that the research tells us is that our brain relies very heavily on executive functions like attention control, working memory, and all of those things to be able to learn effectively. But you see, the truth is that after that long break, these systems obviously now have reduced stamina. So when you expose students to long lessons, huge expectations, all these burdens, what happens is what researchers and experts now call executive overload. What happens if you overload your sockets? Boom, explosion. But for students, you won't see the boom. What you see is the frustration, the fatigue, and the disengagement. That's what happens. Now, here's a crazy fact you may actually find difficult to believe. You see, we know that during the re-entry phase, the attention networks, the part of the brains that actually do the learning, are slower to recalibrate. So it takes a lot of time for it to activate. But the weird thing is that the part of the brain that is responsible for dreaming is actually very active. And so it's more or less like the brain is juggling between rest mode and active mode. So it's either you full or you are busy with learning. And so that mental fight occurring within their brains, that struggle, is what makes it really difficult for them to learn, very honestly. Let me quickly just switch to what our experts at Eduguard Insights actually recommend that we do during this re-entry phase or the first week of school. Three simple things, but in general terms, have a gradual return to learning. And so do things like one, short review tasks, have predictable routines, and ensure that you give the students regular breaks. So here's the final insight for all of us. For teachers, please think of the first week as a warm up session and try as much as possible to move away from performance testing within the first week of school. It actually is a disservice to a lot of students, according to research. And for students, please, when the first week feels difficult, tiring, and you are labeled as lazy, don't take it to heart. The truth of the matter is that your brain is actually now recalibrating. The rest of the school year will be awesome. Enjoy yourselves. This is EduGuard Insights. And remember, this is not opinion. This is science-based learning explained for the Ghanaian classroom. Bye-bye.